to Q-Wide, where this week our food for thought is food. Surfing on a smorgasbord of succulence, ce soir is our delicious panel, the rarest of truffles, David Mitchell. The choicest of cats, Rich Hall. The strangest of fruit, Jimmy Carr. And something furry that's fallen down the gap between the oven and the dishwasher, Alan Davis. Well, now we're all sitting comfortably, so let's ring for service. David goes. Jimmy goes. Rich goes. Alan goes. Right, now, before we tuck in, I've had a tongue down your... I've put a tongue. You will find a tongue. I've put a tongue. Is there a tongue under there? You see?
Is this what you're referring to?
Yes. There's a tongue. That is actually what's known as a tongue map. And during the course of this evening's festivities, I would like you to fill in the areas of the tongue that are responsible for which flavours. You may know there's a certain number of flavours that the tongue can detect.
So you're saying that each area is a different area of taste? So if you had that bit of your tongue, you know, lopped off, you wouldn't be able to taste certain stuff?
That's the theory of a tongue map. But there are only 5 things that a tongue can detect.
How does the food know where to go?
Anyway, while you're thinking about that, let's have a question. What kind of animal can you eat without killing it? Rich.
Crabs, unintentionally. In the South.
Yeah?
In the deep South, in the bayou. On the bayou.
Bayou.
Yeah, yeah. Freshwater mussels, they just pick them right out of the water, and they'll have these tiny pink crabs crawling on them, and they're considered a delicacy. And they're alive. They're alive when you swallow them.
These are things you can eat fully, an animal food stuff, but you don't kill the animal.
So something that sort of comes through like sweet corn, except it's still running around.
Oh!
Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it passes through the entire
unharmed.
digestive system.
Right,
no.
Oh, right.
No.
But it stays in you and sets up a community.
Whatever they put in Yakult. Well, they whittle on about that, don't they?
Yes, bifidus digestivum.
How?
Or L. Casei
How stupid do they think we are?
David, you know these things. I'm so impressed.
I spend a lot of time watching television, and listening to the new made-up science is very entertaining.
I love the made-up science where they go, do you want to buy a tiny pot of off milk?
Yes! And they say it's always such a good deal, just try it for 9 weeks, and then if you don't feel better, then give up, because actually, if everyone tries it for 9 weeks, we're in the money.
And do ladies sit around discussing bloating a lot? Is that a thing that happens?
Have they tried, ladies, if there are ladies
Because
watching this, and they've been talking about bloating,
have they
tried farting like a dock?
Oh.
Because it works remarkably well for me. Try to get someone to pull their
lady
finger.
Bloating. Lady bloating is different, I believe.
Oh, they bloat differently?
I believe so.
They also talk increasingly on the television about being constipated as well.
I've noticed
in general, the standard of female conversation seems to be plummeting.
That's true.
What
happened to the little ladies who used to be so refined? Anyway, no, because, I mean, actually, in a sense, you're probably right about bacteria, which would possibly pass through us and all the way and not be killed. But this is actually a delicacy. I'm inclined to give the point to Rich, because he's sort of accidentally right, only he's sort of wrong as well.
It's not the story of my life.
It's one of the most popular foods, almost a national dish in some ways, of Florida.
Tapeworm.
Not tapeworm. No, that again is a sort of candidate for the answer.
Didn't the tapeworm used to be a dieting thing?
Yes.
At the turn of the century, people went dieting and exercise. Well, fuck that.
There'd be a pill with a tapeworm
and it would take it down, it would eat things. How did... That must work. Why don't we do that?
It works very well.
Well, there's the awkward moment when this tapeworm's got a bit large. The time has come to remove this, 10 yards of worm.
Yeah, you want to tie a string to it.
You have to tempt it out with a little salty drink near your mouth.
You have to tempt it out with a salty drink. This sounds brilliant.
No, but apparently that's how they dealt with tapeworm. One end or another, you tempt it out with a bit of food.
Yeah.
Well,
I know which end I would prefer.
Yes?
Which end would you...
saying.
Which?
What?
You'd rather pull it out of your mouth than your arse?
I think I'd go arse rather than mouth and tapeworm.
Sure, that's all
I'm just saying.
I think I'd have to have experienced a giant worm coming out of both orifices before I'd decide which was the least unpleasant. And it turns out that's actually a question I don't want to know the answer to enough.
Tempt it up like that, tempt it up a bit, get it up there, get its head out, and if you don't like it, take the thing away and put it down the other end, and
But then
it'll do a bit of a Yui, and...
which could be agony.
Yeah, it could be agony.
Tapeworm turning round inside you. Does it sort of reverse into the appendix and go round, or...?
I think they can go, but they don't really move anyway. They just sit with their mouths open, don't they? Yeah. And they clamp themselves onto your... That's the thing about
the wall of your tummy.
They hang on.
Aren't you supposed to sort
gut.
of, when you tempt them out, which at the end of your preference, don't you then sort of roll it around a biro or something?
You know a lot about this for a man that's never tried it from either end.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's obligatory to tie it round a biro. I don't think you have to. I mean, have you heard somewhere that, what if you didn't, it would...
Well, what I heard is that you tempt it out, its head or whatever, one end of it comes out, and then you sort of roll it around something.
There must be nothing more depressing than to hear a tapeworm snap. And you think, well, that is stuck down there.
You're thinking of the guinea worm, which is the one you pull out with a biro.
Oh, right.
Apparently.
Is it some sort of a shellfish seafood item, like
Yeah,
a crawfish?
No, it's really
crayfish,
exactly what...
crab?
It's a crab, but it's a particular kind of crab, very popular
Hermit
in Florida.
crab?
It's a stone crab.
Oh, right.
Stone crab claws are very popular. There is a stone crab, and the fishermen catch the crab, they snap off the claws and throw the crab back in, and it takes about a year for its claws to grow back. But it is considered a great delicacy, usually served with a sort of butter and mustard sauce, very popular indeed in restaurants up and down America, but particularly, as I say, in Florida.
What does it do for a year then, armless down, wandering about?
I mean, it's up to himself.
So the crab is dismayed when it loses its claws, thinking, now I can't get any work done. All that stuff, I'm trying to rearrange the seabed. It'll be a year before I can do any of that. I'm just going to have to lay up. It's almost like they're sort of fruit-bearing animals, aren't they?
That's pretty similar to that, exactly.
Yeah.
Like an apple tree has its apples taken off, but the next year it grows more apples.
So maybe they're trees. They're just seafoody trees.
Yeah,
They can walk around.
Same DNA.
You could have given me as an answer as well. There are certain tribesmen in the Masai Mara in northern Tanzania and Kenya who will drink the blood of cattle. You know, not kill them, but sort of slit the throat a bit and drink the blood, mix it with milk, actually. And then they bind up the wound again, and so they don't kill the cow. But that practice is dying out a bit.
They mix it with milk, so they think that cattle have two drinks. You can have one or the other, or a mixture of the two. Fantastic, these two-drink animals.
Anyway, stone crabs it is. They're returned to the sea alive and their claws have been taken off. Over the next year, they grow a replacement, although it's never quite as good as the first one. Now, what can you usefully teach an oyster? Yes.
Is it, not to get its hopes up? Or to, expect lemon juice and death? Don't try and put up a struggle, it'll never work.
You teach it when you get lemons, make lemonade.
Oh,
cheer it on.
When you get lemons, you're seconds away from death. Because you're not like that kind of crab.
Well, when you think about it, there's not much an oyster can do, really.
You could teach it to blend into parties and make it look like it was invited.
It's true.
Could you teach it
Because
to...
if you went to a party and there's a snack tray, no one ever says, who invited the oysters?
That's true. No one says that.
Can you teach them how to do impressions? They do a brilliant impression of a whelk.
You could probably teach it rudimentary percussion. If you showed it a castanet, it would probably think, fuck, I can do that.
Well, you're very close now. What it is that out of the water, oysters will stay fresh so long as they're closed. But, of course, they live their lives opening and closing their shells in order to let nutrients in, which they filter. So the thing is to teach them to keep their mouths closed for long periods of time.
You do that, like...
Well, the French did. The French simply hit them with metal rods, which makes them close. And they would do that for longer and longer times. And they would learn, they would respond, because they know they got hit all the time.
The French really have a gift for cruelty.
They do, don't they? Very special. But what happened in New York, when they first arrived in what is now New York, the settlers, they had never seen such a profusion of oysters. Some of them were a foot long. But they couldn't transport them around any other parts of the States because they would go off, because they had their things open and there was no ice around. So what they did was they would move them up the bank at each tide so that they had more and more time in the air, and that would teach them to have their mouths closed for longer. So they would learn to have their mouths closed for longer and longer and longer until they had them closed all the time, long enough for you to transport them and sell them and eat them without making people ill. Well, there we are. That's your oyster. Now, how did the Mounties use fruit machines to get their man?
When you say fruit machines, is this a friend of yours? He's a fruit machine. That guy's a fruit machine.
Well, you're right in the sense
something they say.
the fruit machine was a nickname. It wasn't actually a one-armed bandit. It wasn't a gambling machine.
It's going to be something to do with actual fruit.
Is it?
No, it is actually the meaning of it that Jimmy, in his rapacious and, if I may say so, politically wildly incorrect way, went for.
Sorry, well, the Mountie uniform's quite fruity.
No, it's easy to forget with the Mounties. That's the Canadian police. If you're a policeman in Canada, you remember the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Oh, that's all of them there.
That's the...
So they have no unmounted police?
Well,
that must that must be difficult on raids in small flats. Ow, my head!
Well, you should see the squad cars. Yeah. They're a mess, David. They are a mess.
Well, imagine trying to chase a heroin addict up a small staircase on a horse. That's ridiculous.
Heroin addicts would know to head for the small staircase.
Yes, they were.
It's like trying to police a country with Daleks.
Which would never work with the disabled access we got now. The Daleks can get everywhere.
Yeah.
They could certainly
Jimmy,
get
are you saying that you think that disabled access is a Dalek conspiracy?
Yes. That is exactly what I'm saying. They can get fucking anywhere. We are sitting ducks.
I had a great uncle in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Oh, you might know about
When you say a great uncle, your favourite?
I didn't know about it until I did one of these family tree things.
Oh, yeah.
And he was in the First World War and he had his leg blown off.
Oh.
And he went to live in Canada and he became the chief constable of the Vancouver Canadian Mounted Police.
Wow, amazing.
I don't know if they were struggling for men.
One advantage of being a mounted policeman is it's, you know, you don't need two legs. The horse has got four to do it all for you.
Essentially, their whole police force has too many legs to start with. They've got 6 legs per policeman, which means they're policed by insects.
That's not so silly, David. No, we come back to this fruit machine. In the Cold War period, they were worried in a lot of Western countries about civil servants. There had been a few scandals about civil servants being blackmailed. For what reason?
Homosexuality.
For being homosexual, for being gay. Now, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, they were trying to find out the homosexuals in the Canadian Civil Service.
Right.
So that they could not be honey-trapped by Soviet spies and so on. That was the theory of it.
So is one of these gay then? Is
No,
that, is this
no,
like
no.
never mind the bus cops? Number 3.
Was this before the RAF invented gaydar?
Yes, exactly. It was a gaydar machine, if you like. It was essentially a pretty primitive device which, amongst other things, showed people pictures of nude men and women and measured their pupil dilation and their perspiration. But the awful thing is, if they failed, as it were, they were sacked. That was their job over with. They were deemed to be homosexual and they were out of a job.
Of course, the whole system is thrown out for any civil servants who fancy horses.
Yeah.
All the people running the test in the room, you know, riding around the room, saying, can't quite reach down to the fruit machine. Damn these horses.
This crude measurement device was replaced, though, by something called...
Dancing on ice.
Do you like dancing on ice? Is this a trick question? Yes, I do. You're out.
No, you've got to answer, it's to die for.
It's a plethysmograph. And a plethysmograph is an instrument. There's two versions, a male version and a female version, because you're trying to catch lesbians here as well, apparently.
Oh.
So the male version is basically a kind of cock ring, is the only way I can describe it, that measures the tumescence of the male member when certain images are played to it. And for women, it's a sort of dildo that measures lubrication.
I wouldn't mind doing that.
What? Jimmy, so much is coming out here.
I'm just saying, the testing...
You'd like to do that, would you?
Well, yeah, who got the testing job? That sounds brilliant.
Ooh, doesn't it? Oh, lovely.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Be a giggle. When was this? When did they invent that?
Well, surprisingly recently. I mean, it was used up until the 80s.
To the 80s?
Yeah.
But surely it was legal and
1980s.
above board in the 1980s.
Well, exactly. It seems so
Homosexual.
odd.
It seems weird that they would just go, well, we'll just double-check that.
The odd thing about the fruit machine was the guy who brought it to Canada was called Kurt Freund. Had actually invented it. He was a German living in Czechoslovakia. He'd invented it in order to do the precise opposite. It was to catch out people who claimed they were gay and used it as exemption from serving in the Czechoslovakian army. Now, you have a choice of venues for dinner tonight. Russia or France. Describe the difference between Russian and French service. Yes.
In France, they give you lots of vaguely obstetric instruments to dismantle
Right.
things like frog legs and
Oh,
snails
I see.
and
Special cutlery.
all the stuff you would
Yeah.
have your backyard fumigated for.
And in
And
Russia?
in Russia, they just go, here's a turnip. If you don't like it, you're going to Siberia.
You know what the Russian national dish is? Yeah. Empty. Not my fault.
I think I know the answer
Go
to
on.
this. I think it's that isn't almost all service now is what you call Russian service, which is sort of you have food in courses, one after another. And French service, which obviously the French don't, they have food in courses like everyone, like the Russians. But French service was everything sort of coming at once, like a kind of buffet.
That is an absolutely perfect answer. David Mitchell, have a handful of points. Completely correct. Yeah. And of course, there's the tapas and mezedit principle in lots of Middle Eastern and Mediterranean cooking. But you're absolutely right. The French, right up until the 19th century, all the courses would come in one big go, and you just helped yourself to everything. And then the Russian Prince Kurakin, who was the ambassador to Napoleon's court, he came and said, we have had this brilliant idea in Russia. It's used one course and then another. And this was considered absolutely staggering and revolutionary. And it caught on.
Then the Americans improved on it by making it able for you to drive through in a car.
Yes.
And get it in a bag. From a 16-year-old.
They did indeed.
With shingles.
I mean, David, I have to call you my teacher's pet, and you get a special fanfare instead of a forfeit for that, because that is absolutely brilliant. There you are. So you are teacher's pet.
I don't feel that cool.
It's not a cool thing to be, I'm afraid, but
No.
you do get points.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's important. Escoffier was the man who introduced this into private homes and, more importantly, into restaurants. What do you know about Escoffier? Anything?
David will know.
He started Frog's Legs.
You're absolutely right.
And I only know that because I went on David's radio show and found it out.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
Also, I should at this point say, in the QI annual, I did a page on Escoffier. So I'm quite well...
Let's
you know,
hear
this
it.
could be a good bit.
First name?
Auguste.
Brilliant.
And he...
Died in...
Oh, I can't remember.
Terrible house fire.
About 19...
He died in 1935. He lived a long time, 62 years.
And he sort of
was a chef.
founded the Ritz Hotel in Paris and the Carlton Hotel in London.
And
used-
the
was-
Savoy.
And was the chef at the Savoy.
Brilliant. And what's his most famous dish?
Well, he invented peach Melba, didn't he?
Yes.
Dame Nellie Melba.
The Dame Nellie Melba.
And also apparently invented Melba toast for her as well, because she was dieting in between peach Melbas.
And who was Nellie Melba?
She was an opera singer,
And what was her real name?
Mitchell.
Yes, very good.
And
I am so
I think her
impressed.
father was called David Mitchell. in
Get
fact.
out. Do you know?
This is like happening.
I am truly impressed. If anyone thinks this is set up, it truly
You
is.
are tumescent, I know you are. Where's the fruit machine now?
Well, talking
New
of,
facts?
talking of that there's a fact about Dame Nellie Melba. Do you know what she liked to have? Legend has it, what she liked to do when she was waiting to go on. What was her profession?
She was an opera
She was a
singer.
great opera singer, exactly. And what did you think was good for the voice?
Oral sex.
No, I'm not saying anything.
Alan gets the point, oral sex, yes. It turned her from a dramatic soprano into a bass, unfortunately.
Another boy.
Of course, you know... She's a very famous opera singer in her day.
Yes.
Sort of like a Dame Kiri Takanawa.
Very much so. You're all
Famous
How do we know that
Jim
she was
Sutherland.
sucking people off backstage?
Well, these kind of things get out. I mean, you know, the people who work backstage who were young men would tell it to their children. I mean, it's just a big
Tell it to
rumour.
their children. Hey, son, you never guess who struck me off.
That David Mitchell's girl.
What kind of a relationship do you have with your father, Stephen?
It is absolutely
Come
true.
here, son, let me
My
tell you a
father
story.
has never told me an anecdote about anyone sucking him off. I have never discussed
Stop it!
I defy you to find a man who has told his children about his oral sex experience.
I tell you what, son, you're lucky to even be here.
Anyway, listen, I mean, I don't know, can I make you a double teacher's pet? Yes, I can. I'm going to give you another fanfare because that was so extraordinary, your day. Yeah, look at that. Bravo. Yeah.
I don't want to rain on your parade, but if you look closely, Stephen's pupils have gone 10 times bigger.
I am, as Alan rightly said, aroused by people who are passionate about interesting facts.
I've certainly filled in one of my tongue parts, anyway.
We're happy to have helped with that little quiz. Now, the fact is, until Escoffier introduced service à la Russe to Western Europe, meals were normally served all at once and eaten in whatever order you fancied. Now, since I gave up Greco-Roman wrestling a few years ago, I've put on quite a few pounds, as you might be able to tell. Do you have any tips on how I can turn this fat back into living muscle?
When you say you've given up Greco-Roman wrestling, you can't change who you are, Stephen.
No, I know. Who do you think invented Greco-Roman wrestling?
Greeks and Romans.
Now all you have to say is Mr. Wrestling.
No, actually, it was the French, and they thought they'd give it a classical sort of thing.
You
There were
want
two.
some men rubbing against each other.
There was freestyle wrestling, catch as catch can, as it was called. And they wanted this other form which didn't involve, you couldn't do anything below the waist, as it were. You couldn't hook people, you couldn't use your legs, you couldn't hook people onto the ground. You know what Mae West said about all-in wrestling? If it's all in, why wrestle? But,
God
good,
love it.
yes, you think about it.
Finally, this show gets back on firm heterosexual footing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can't turn muscle into fat into
Thank
muscle.
you, Alan Davis.
Two different things. That thing about if you're muscly, if you don't keep doing it, it turns into fat. That's nonsense.
You're so right, and that's precisely what I wanted to say, Alan. That is brilliance on your part, and I'm very, very pleased with you. Well done. I think I might give you a teacher's pet fanfare as well, as a matter of
I
fact.
have still written semen on my tongue, though.
Well, at least you've just written it.
As I used to... You know, boys who rub me up the wrong way come to a sticky end. So, this idea that fat turns to muscle fat, it's nonsense. It's like saying your toenail can turn into your ear. I mean, they're just two completely different substances and parts and metabolisms and structures of the body, and they're not the same. Now, what is the worst thing to eat for tooth decay?
Crystal meth.
There is some truth. Certainly, crystal meth addicts have appalling teeth.
Have you seen the ad for crystal meth?
No.
It doesn't make me want to do it.
Ad against it, surely.
Oh, is it? That
Yeah, I
explains
think
it.
so.
No, that makes perfect sense. Because I looked at it and went, who's buying that? It's horrible. And the fact they sell it in vials.
Yeah,
The worst thing you could do would be to
to eat.
because I saw this on TV, is to put them in salsa, and then run a current through it.
That must be bad, I grant you.
So I broke out of jail in Mexico. It took him 6 years. He just kept wiping salsa on the bars.
Oh, my
And eventually, after 6 years, the acid broke down the steel.
Oh.
And then they went, it was that Mythbuster show.
Oh, wow.
And then they ran a current through it, and it just happened in days.
Gracious, how brilliant.
So you wouldn't want to do that.
If your teeth were like iron bars.
I would just say, don't run a current through your teeth.
No,
at
that's
all.
a good full stop. You're right.
I know, it's
Can
not
be.
going to be sugar, is it? You're trying to make us say sugar.
The point is, there's something worse than sugar. Sugar is quite bad, but the thing about it is it dissolves quite quickly in your saliva and is out and away from the teeth, whereas potato starch is just about the worst thing because it hangs around in the teeth much more than sugar. Crisps are a particularly bad thing. There are bits of them stay up, and you may think, oh, well, at least it's not sugar. It's not like having an opal fruit stuck in there, but actually, it's really bad. Do you know having gum disease doubles your chance of coronary artery disease? That's pretty scary, isn't it?
Does it double your chances, or is it just there's a correlation between the two?
No, there is a direct causal link. Bacteria from the mouth find their way to the heart. A lot of disease in the heart actually is disease. It is infection, not just bad lifestyle and being lazy. It is actually, you can get a virus, the heart can kill people very commonly, or bacteria.
So flossing is good for your heart?
Yes, that's a good thought, isn't it? How about
Well,
that?
don't try and floss your heart.
I saw in America anal floss.
Here we go again.
It's a way of... It's not a gay thing, Rich. It's an American thing. It's a way of drying your intimate cracky
God
parts.
bless America.
Yeah, exactly.
Drive-through
floss.
hamburgers and
How does
anal
this work?
floss.
Isn't that just a towel?
Yeah,
In a
child, but it's a
hilarious-
special one.
You were
that's-
doing the wrong way then.
Sorry, was I?
It's a special, special towel with a gusset.
Yeah, basically. Exactly. Sorry, pulling his sleeves up worried me. I thought you were going to...
I'll show you anal floss.
Something veterinarian was going to happen. Anyway, surprisingly, sweets and chocolate aren't the worst thing for your teeth. Potato starch sticks to teeth for far longer, providing a feast for the acid-producing bacteria that erode your teeth. So that bag of chips might not just make you fat, it might make your teeth fall out too. Now, while we're digesting that terrible truth, how about a story? Tell me, if you would, the tale of the miracle of the herrings.
Is it a miracle as in the act of an interventionist god? I can tell you it didn't happen.
Yeah, you're right. It so didn't happen, but it is an official miracle. It's just one of them rather more pathetic.
They
I'm
fell
afraid,
from the
at
sky.
times.
Is it one of those raining fish stories?
Well,
Is it
it's
the feeding of the three?
no, it's really
Quite a big
sad.
herring.
The feeding of the one person who didn't like herring on herring.
always thought that about
and he says, it's not too bad, actually.
I saw that the feeding of the 5,000, like it's 5,000 people and there went some bread and fish. I reckon that was just about 4,500 people going, what have we got, bread and fish? I'm all right, thanks. I'll have something when I get home.
It's also the other interesting thing about that story is that out of the 5,000 people, only 2 of them had thought to bring any food.
Yes.
And so in a way, it's, OK, good miracle, but the other side of it is 4,998 idiots with no sense of foresight at all, and Jesus doesn't make them learn a lesson from that. It's
You're
all
right.
fine.
You said, this is a
they
Sermon
lived
on
to
the
not-
Mount. This isn't Glastonbury, he could have said, couldn't he?
But, you know, you used to say, you didn't bring any food? Of course there's
Yeah.
not going to be any food. Think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Plan next time. Judea would be better if people planned. But no, it always works out fine. Jesus will magic up some grub. And he's going to get crucified one day, and then what are you going to eat?
Yes. As you know, Roman Catholic Church likes to appoint, after they're dead, it likes to do this thing to holy dead people that
Saint.
makes them a saint.
They're fast-tracking one at the moment. I read about this Padre Pio. They're trying to fast-track
And
it.
they're trying to fast-track Mother
Pope.
Teresa, of course.
Yeah, Mother Teresa.
But this is one of the great 13th century divine creatures, as it were, a theologian philosopher called Thomas Aquinas. And they wanted to make him a saint. Now, he's a Dominican friar, but he didn't mortify his flesh, as you're supposed to. There he is, Thomas Aquinas. So they couldn't, that was a bit bad. He didn't seem to do any particularly good works while he was around. He wrote splendidly, he was a great philosopher. And they had to try and find a miracle for him, and there was no miracle until someone told a story that apparently on his deathbed, he said, oh, I could really fancy a herring, some herrings. Have you got some herrings? Now, they're in the Mediterranean where there are no herrings, so they thought, oh, we'll bring him some pilchards, you won't know. And so they gave him some pilchards, and he went, They're the best herrings I've ever tasted. And so this is genuinely true. The Catholic Church decided to interpret that as the miracle of the herrings, that the pilchards had turned to herrings in his mouth. And therefore, he qualified as a saint, and therefore he is to this day St. Thomas Aquinas.
The thing is, if you're going to make it up, you might as well make up something better than that.
You'd think, wouldn't
Just
you?
say, you know, suddenly magicked up a unicorn and it
Yeah,
gave
I
him
know.
a kiss.
I think that's what's so sweet and feeble about it, is
Yeah.
that they're just groping for a miracle. And so anyway, they made him a saint.
Yeah, I like a saint.
You like a saint, do you?
Oh, I like a saint, yeah. What's the matter with a saint? Nice.
Yeah.
If you're going to have imaginary friends, have loads of them.
Well, the great thing is it's something for people to collect, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, it's like Star Wars.
Yes.
There are all the figures. There's a merchandising opportunity.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Anyway, there we are. The miracle of the herrings was attributed to Thomas Aquinas so that he would qualify for sainthood. Now, before we head below the salt, let's have a look at your tasting maps of the tongues, can we? What have we got here? We'll start with you, Jimmy. What have you got?
I imagine you would taste failure there and success at the back. Bitter taste of resentment.
Ah, so bitter at the back, you think, possibly?
What are the tastes? It's salt, sweet,
sour.
and then didn't they
bitter,
invent one, which
the
is
fifth
MSG?
one. Yes.
But they didn't discover it until 1911 or something bizarre?
Well, it's umami. It's the brothy, mushroomy, slightly...
I love it.
Savoury, exactly.
Sweet, salt,
Sour,
sour, MSG, bitter.
and, yeah, that's it.
Is that
Five.
it?
Five, yeah.
Well,
Five.
what's Gordon Ramsay wittering on about in all those shows? If that's it.
That's on the tongue. There's a rainbow of things in the olfactory bulb in the nose. That's where all real flavours and things can be detected. But the tongue is only for those five. What have you got, Rich?
Guilt, remorse,
That's when you taste guilt.
crabby.
David, what have you got for us?
I've got be sick, because it does make you be sick. And that's forgotten names on the...
Oh, very good. Very good. Excellent.
Alan, I got bitter, sour and sweet, and then I ran out of ideas. I had savoury. I didn't think it was right.
That is umami. It's pretty savoury, yeah.
And then I had one left, so I just put jam in.
Well, for all we know, your tongue may.
Are any of these right?
No, the fact is, actually, all this, the whole tongue map idea is actually nonsense. Yeah, thank you. Throw your tongue over your shoulder, because...
Well, if I could do that...
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't be working here for a start. Me being a happy man, I wouldn't leave the house. She wouldn't let me.
Because you could lick your shoulder blade.
Well, the inference being...
I suppose, yeah. There was a French restaurateur, quite a famous one in London, who's since
Don't
retired.
tell me who actually could.
No. But he used to say to women, "Excuse me, can I smell your pussy?" And they'd go, "No." He said, "Oh, it must be your feet then." Terrible joke. Sorry.
How many of those people then
he always
stayed in the restaurant?
He didn't do it in the restaurant. He didn't come up
This
to
is
the
a horrible restaurant. I mean, how good is the soup going to have to be?
You do it relaxing off-duty,
Right.
you would say. One of his jokes, anyway. We detect those five primary flavours all over the tongue and not in that. That used to be held to be the tongue map. And amazingly, it's still in quite a lot of textbooks. But it is absolutely not true. And so, we come to the highlight of our feast, la pièce de générale ignorance. Elbows off the tables and fingers on the buzzers. Name a poisonous snake. Yes, Jimmy.
Piers Morgan.
Poison is not the same as venom. It can't be. Because there are loads of poisonous snakes.
You sounded so like Jonathan Creek just then.
You suddenly hit
Just somehow with a pen.
Yeah.
It's just so right. You
I've
went...
got it. I've got
got
the
it.
answer.
It can't
in a locked
be.
room.
There are
Yeah.
lots of them. It's
Yeah,
a
well,
trick.
we haven't named one yet.
I'm not going to. They're all going to be up there. I refuse.
You're so right.
It could have been...
Because
You were hoping...
we were hoping you'd say cobra and
He said it!
rattlesnake. And all those sort of things. But of course, the word poisonous does not apply to them. It means if you eat it, it makes you very ill or kills you.
But venom goes...
Venom is something injected into your blood. So those are all venomous snakes. But there are only two poisonous snakes we could find. Ones that if you ate, they would kill you. You know, like a poison fruit or a poison berry. And they are, in fact, there's the Japanese grass snake, Rhabdophis tigrinus becomes poisonous by eating toxic toads, in fact, and it stores them in little glands in its neck. If you eat that, you'll die. Or there's the Thamnophnis sertalis, which is the common garter snake.
Stephen.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
It eats a poisonous newt, an orange-bellied, rough-skinned newt. Now, what shouldn't you eat before bedtime?
Once again, it's a trap.
Yeah, I can...
Yeah.
Cheese!
Bad dreams. Gives you bad
Supposedly
dreams.
gives you... Well,
Always
apparently,
progress.
according to a study, it's been debunked in 2005. Apparently, it gives you actually good dreams. On the other hand, the study was instituted by the British Cheese Board.
You called the British Cheese Board.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, God.
I think they're aware of the joke. But no, but they make the point that there's an amino acid in cheese, as there is in milk and all dairy products, called tryptophan, which is a thing that gives you peace and joy and tranquility and helps you sleep.
No, that's diazepam.
That's also diazepam. But tryptophan is a natural one.
I don't think it makes it better that they're aware of the joke. That they've made their name a joke.
The British Cheese Board.
Manufacturing cheese is not a joke. Why would they turn their name into... And you make your name of your organisation a joke. It sits there dying, like a joke on a fridge. A joke should be cracked and then you forget it. But no, it's there on all the
stationery
notepaper.
and everything. You're right, the British Cheese Board, and it becomes less and less funny each time, doesn't it?
It's like a headline...
I work for the British Cheese Board, please don't say anything.
There was a headline on the BBC website when BA's profits went up, and they said BA's profits soar.
Oh,
Why is that better?
Yeah.
No one's going to laugh because you've said soar like a plane would soar. Just say go up. just avoid saying not go up because planes go up. Say increase. Do anything to avoid that awful half-limping, fetus of a joke.
You're right, you're so right. From your lips to God's ears. Bravo. So the British Cheese Commission has determined that cheese is actually very good.
What are those people doing, by the way?
I don't know.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in a chair.
Pretty sure there's an opera singer in that fridge.
He's reaching in. I keep the semen in here.
Oh, dear.
Didn't the romantic poets used to eat off meat in order to give themselves crazy dreams?
I've not heard that specifically. That's a very interesting thought. They certainly liked, obviously, toying with morphine and
Well,
with
I
opium,
heard that
as
they
we
used
know.
to eat really sort of gamey meat, leave it for a couple of days and eat it, and they would notice that they had extraordinary dreams because the kind of rotting flesh would give them
And
slightly
extraordinary
hallucinogenic.
as well.
I've not heard that. And extraordinary poos, did you say?
That's what I dreamt I had to get up 10 times last night and sit lonely squitting. That's the only kind of dreams that off-meat has ever given me. With sight of the inside of the lavatory door. That miserable hours.
Maybe that's why you get so many poems. Oh, well, no.
Yeah.
Mainly
Well,
limericks.
oddly enough, Byron actually wrote on a lavatory wall a very elegant classical poem, which was a sort of asking for a good stool. A cloaca is the Latin for a sewer, for a drain, for a lavatory. And so he wrote, "O Cloacina, goddess of this place, look on thy suppliants with smiling face. Smooth and consistent may their offerings flow, neither rashly swift nor insolently slow." That's a genuine poetic...
Better class of graffiti in
You
your
do,
school.
don't you? I rather
When he
like.
says rashly swift, is that really possible for a poo? To come
Well-
back too quick?
It's what's known as the pathetic fallacy in the world of poetry, where you impute a kind of emotion or an ability to an object which is not capable of it.
Okay.
There you are, that's rather... That's all right. So, the British Cheese Board says, let them eat cheese, but who said let them eat cake?
Oh.
Yes.
It's that French woman.
Yes? What's
Dawn
her
French.
name? Oh, very good.
She said let them eat brioche.
Who did?
I'm not saying it.
But I'm asking you, I need to know.
Oh, was it Mr. Kipling?
Oh, Jimmy. Oh, no.
Marie Osmond.
Marie Osmond.
Kirsten Dunst.
No.
Kirsten Dunst in that shocking film. It's the worst film ever made since Revolution with Al Pacino.
Did it involve cakes? Oh, a Marie Antoinette film.
Yes.
Oh, was it? Is it?
So would you say, what?
Yes.
Who said it?
What you said.
Marie Antoinette.
Wait, why are you keeping on saying Marie Antoinette?
because I wanted that to happen. No, Marie Antoinette didn't say it, or if she did say it, she was quoting it. She was born in 1755, as every schoolboy knows, and the phrase was seen in print in 1760, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau claims to have seen it in 1740. So it's an old thing. It's this idea that it was Marie Antoinette is not true.
I think it's unfair. You want to hear the whole conversation.
Yeah.
They haven't got any bread. Let them eat cake. They haven't got any cake either. Oh, I understand this is a problem.
Yes.
I'll in some way talk to the ministers about it. We'll see what we can do.
That might well have been
How it went.
the accusation that one grand lady or another committed this particular gaffe was in circulation at least 15 years before Marie Antoinette was born. Now, what makes up more than 70% of the internet? Ooh.
It's my personal collection, isn't it?
Of what?
Of gentlemen's special interest literature.
I think we know what you're talking about.
Well, if you're going to be like that...
No, it's just quite surprising. They did a survey on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union, who were very annoyed about some legislation that Bush was trying to push through, which they thought somewhat prohibitive of personal liberty, and they discovered that less than 1% of the internet is pornography. Less than 1%.
You say that, but I was typing in a thing the other day about... I wanted to know why German people are so fastidious. So I typed in German anal, and it was... I lost a week, Stephen.
You are so bad.
You emerge bleary-eyed. Finally pull back the curtain.
I need fluids.
7 days.
Of all email traffic, 85, in fact, up to 89%, is spam. It's as simple as that.
Trying to sell you Xanax and penis enlargement.
Exactly. Soft Cialis, whatever that is.
The annoying thing about those, I get loads of them, most of them from my girlfriend, but it's the ones from my mum that really hurt.
Oh. Yay! Oh. Yes, a recent study has established that the World Wide Web is less than 1% pornography, and on the other hand, 89% of all emails are spam, which is good news if you're looking for cheap pills or you want to increase your extremities. The exciting thing is that brings us to the coffee and liqueurs, as it were, to the end of our little dinner and l'addition, s'il vous plaît, garçon. And let's have a look at the scores. Well, it's pretty unsurprising to those who've been paying close attention that our runaway winner with a full 10 points is David Mitchell. Hurrah! It's well done to David with 10, and it's medium with -2 to Rich Hall. Way! And it's a very rare third place for Alan Davis with -12. Looking decidedly blue, it's Jimmy Carr with -46. It only remains for me to thank my fellow diners, Rich, Jimmy, David and Alan, and to leave you with the reproving words of our favourite Dame Nellie Melba, on being presented with a gelatin-based pudding which had not been allowed to set properly. There are 2 things I like stiff, she said, and one of them's jelly. Good night.